I now give the floor to the representative of the United States.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, we are here today because Russia seeks to distract global attention from its development of a new satellite carrying a nuclear device. On April 24, Russia vetoed a resolution supported by 13 members of the Security Council that called on all member states not to develop nuclear weapons specifically designed to be placed in orbit. That resolution, which was a product of nearly 2 months of constructive negotiations and co-sponsored by 65 countries, reflected a simple reality. Placement of a nuclear weapon into orbit would not only violate the Outer Space Treaty, it would also threaten human spaceflight, as well as the vital communications, scientific, meteorological, agricultural, commercial, and national security services that any and all satellites provide to people around the globe. We have heard President Putin say publicly that Russia has no intention of deploying nuclear weapons in space. If that were the case, Russia would not have vetoed that resolution. Over the past several weeks, and following widespread condemnation from a geographically diverse group of member states in the General Assembly on May 6, Russia has sought to distract from its dangerous efforts to put a nuclear weapon into orbit. The culmination of Russia's campaign of diplomatic gaslighting and dissembling is the text before us today. Drafted through a hasty process that did not take into account legitimate, repeated, and shared concerns by a majority of this Council, Russia's resolution does not achieve the simple task that we set out to achieve several months ago: reaffirm the basic obligations of the Outer Space Treaty and avoid a nuclear arms race in space. Consequently, the United States will not support this disingenuous resolution. We urge the Council to reject it and instead reiterate our call for Russia to join every other member of this Council in supporting the common sense, straightforward text that dozens of member states supported only 4 weeks ago. Again, Russia does not want the Security Council to focus on its dangerous actions in space. Its veto then requires that we be skeptical of its statements today and its intentions in putting forward this resolution. It's also vital we not lose track of some simple facts. First, rather than enhance arms control, the Russian text put forward today would narrow the scope of efforts in other United Nations bodies in a way that would be detrimental to preventing an arms race in outer space. Second, by seeking to use this resolution to put forward language on other topics that Russia knows does not have consensus support in this Council, Russia's text also distracts from affirming the important obligations of all 116 states parties to the Outer Space Treaty, including that no nuclear weapons or other weapons of mass destruction be put into orbit. Third, the text that Russia vetoed on April 24 went to great lengths to address every Council member's concerns in a broader and more inclusive manner than what Russia has forced on the Council today. To repeat, the resolution that Russia vetoed was supported by 13 members of this Council and was co-sponsored by 65 member states. It reflected the strong global consensus, as the President of the General Assembly, Ambassador Francis, later declared during the Assembly's May 6 meeting that, and I quote, "Outer space does not belong to individual nations. Its peaceful and sustainable use is not subject to national appropriation and must be a place of peace and cooperation for the benefit and in the interest of all countries," unquote. The United States could not agree more. For our part, the United States will continue to demonstrate how space activities can be conducted in a responsible, peaceful, and sustainable manner in order to preserve the benefits of space for current and future generations. We also will continue to put a bright spotlight on Russia's troubling actions in space and how they diverge from its statements here in the Security Council. Indeed, just last week, on May 16, Russia launched the satellite into low Earth orbit that the United States assesses is likely a counter-space weapon presumably capable of attacking other satellites in low Earth orbit. Russia deployed this new counter-space weapon into the same orbit as a U.S. government satellite. Russia's May 16 launch follows prior Russian satellite launches, likely of counter space systems, to low Earth orbit in 2019 and 2022. Colleagues, I urge you to vote no on this distraction and to join us in pressing Russia to cease its obstruction here in the Security Council. And we urge you to join us in making clear to Russia that the world will not turn a blind eye to its dangerous and unprecedented efforts to develop a new satellite carrying a nuclear device, which undermines its obligations under the Outer Space Treaty and counters the views of an overwhelming majority of members of the Security Council. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of the United States for their important statement.